We left off last time where Link was able to now walk up, down, left, right. He can also travel on this background image where he can go up, left, down, and right when he gets too close to any one of those edges. He can also traverse, and when he gets too close to the edge of the map, it'll stop and he can't go any further. The next thing we want to do is create a friend that Link can talk to. When he talks to that friend of his that's walking around randomly on the stage, he should be able to see a text field update at the top. That's our goal with this next part of the lesson. To do that, we're going to first need to import in all of the sprites for Link's friend. Now before we do that, we should also organize things in our library a little bit. As the game becomes more complex, it's important that we stay organized. So we've already created a folder for Link and the individual sprites of him, but we should also create a folder for all of the movie clips of Link. So I'll create a new folder, call it Link Movie Clips, and put all of the Link movie clips inside that folder. I'm also going to create another folder called Background Stuff and put all the background images in there. So we have 3 folders now. I'm going to go to File, Import to Library, and import in these pictures of Mr. Kope. Now these are just the ones I'm using because they're handy for me, but you can use any image that you want as long as it has a walk cycle for your friend. So I'm going to go ahead and hold Control and select the images I need and click Open. And now those pictures are in my library. I'll also place those in its own folder. So I'll just call that Kope Sprites and select all of those pictures and put them inside the Kope Sprites folder. Nice and organized. The next thing we need to do is create 3 animations. One animation for him walking backwards, one for him walking forwards, and one walking left. We don't need to worry about right because we're just going to flip it again, just like last time. So to start out, we'll do back since it's at the top of the list. I'm going to go to Insert, New Symbol, and just like before, we're going to give it a name. Call this Kope Walk Back. Type is movie clip. I'm going to click OK and drag over Kope Back 1 and drop it here near the crosshair. I'm going to go forward to frame number 6 and insert a blank keyframe and drag over Kope Back 2. Now I want to make sure they line up with each other, so I'm going to turn on onion skinning, which is right down here, and I'm going to move him over so that he's on the top. To make it easy on myself, I'm going to zoom in a bit and make sure that everything lines up properly. So with onion skinning on, I'm going to line him up. There we go. Looks pretty good. And zoom back out a little and see if he animates correctly, which it looks like he does. The only thing is that there's only 1 frame of him with his left leg forward and 5 frames of him with his right leg forward. That's going to cause a problem. It'll look like he's hobbling. So we're going to go ahead and put a frame at frame 10, insert a frame there, so that way he's on each leg for an equal time. So that's Kope Walk Back. Let's go back to scene 1 and insert another new symbol. Call this Kope Walk Front. Click OK there. Drag over Kope Front 1. Drop it there. Go to frame 6. Insert a blank keyframe. Drag over Kope Front 2. Now I accidentally inserted I wanted to insert a blank keyframe, but I clicked keyframe by mistake. So I'm just going to delete this one there. So that way on frame 1 through 5, it's a picture of Kope Front 1, that's this one. And on frame 6, it's a blank keyframe because I'm going to drag over Kope Front 2. And we're going to make sure that everything lines up. So I'm going to turn on onion skinning and zoom in a bit. Make sure it all lines up. There we go, looks pretty good. And go to frame 10 and insert a frame. So animation looks pretty good. It looks like he's bobbing up and down a little bit, so I might just move it a hair. That's pretty good. Okay. I'll turn off onion skinning there. We got Kope Front 1 done. Animation looks pretty clean. We'll go back to scene 1 and insert one more keyframe. One more symbol. And this one's going to be called Kope walk left, drag over copy left 1, drop it on the symbol here, and we're going to zoom in a bit again, insert a blank keyframe at frame 6, this time make sure it's blank keyframe, and drag over copy left 2, turn on onion skinning, make sure they line up properly. Looks pretty good, and we're going to insert a frame at frame 10, and play the animation. He goes up and down a little bit. I actually like that because it looks like he's going, you bob up and down as you walk, so that's fine with me. I'm going to go back to scene 1, and we'll turn off onion skinning there, and we're ready to rock. We have 3 animations for Cope. Now we need to create a movie clip that has all of these movie clips inside of it, just like we did with Link. So I'm going to insert one more symbol. I'm going to call this one Cope All Sprites. In Cope All Sprites, on frame 1, I'm going to drag over Cope Walk Back, and I'm just doing that one first because it's in alphabetical order and that's the first one on the list. This time I'm going to pay close attention to the crosshair because it's going to move Cope based on where this crosshair is. This is going to be the registration point. So I'm going to make sure I put it in the same spot on each of the frames. There he is on frame 1. I dragged over Cope Walk Back, the movie clip. On frame 2, I'm going to insert a blank keyframe and drag over Cope Walk Front. Drop that there. Make sure I onion skin it. Looks like they line up pretty good. On the next frame, I'm going to go ahead and insert one more blank keyframe here. Drag over Cope Walk Left. And there he is. And on the last frame, the 4th frame, I'm going to insert a keyframe. That's because I want to duplicate this frame here that has an animation of Cope walking left on frame 4. I want the same thing. So I'm going to insert a keyframe here, and you can see that frame 3 and frame 4 have the exact same thing, except on frame 4, I'm going to go to Modify, Transform, and Flip Horizontal so that Cope faces the right. So each of these frames have a movie clip of one of Cope's directions. The next step is to go in and label each of these frames. Now I'm going to choose the same label that we used for Link just so we're consistent. So I click on frame 1, you have to select it, head up to the top where it says Properties, and inside Properties you should see Label. On frame 1, type in the label, Walk Back Frame. That's the same thing we used earlier, but this time it's going to be inside of the Cope All Sprites movie clip. On the second frame, I'm going to select it once again, type in Walk Front Frame. The third frame will be called Walk Left Frame. And again, pay attention to what you're capitalizing. As long as they match, you're good. It stores it as a string, so you can have spaces if you want. That's no problem. Walk Left Frame. So I'm capitalizing each of my first letters. You don't have to, but that's just what I'm doing. And then on the last one, I'm going to write Walk Right Frame. Now in my case, I'm not going to have any keyframes for him just standing still because I want Cope to always look like he's walking. So I don't really need to worry about having images of him standing still and not moving. So we have 4 frames, each with its own label. It looks like everything's spelled correctly. I don't see any mistakes. We go back to scene 1. And in my library, I'm going to organize each of these 4 movie clips by creating a new folder and calling it Cope Movie Clips. And drag all the Cope sprites or animations that we created and put them inside the Cope Movie Clips folder. So now I have the Cope movie clips inside the Cope Movie Clips folder and the Cope still images, the sprites, inside the Cope Sprites folder. Nice and organized. Over here on the left side we have our timeline along with 3 layers that we've created so far. We have the background, which I'm going to lock. We have the link layer, which has link on it, and we have the actions layer, which has nothing on it, but I use that to type my actions. Again, just to stay organized. I could have put everything on one layer, but that's just not how I like to do things. On the layer just below actions, I'm going to create a new layer and call this new layer Cope. On the Cope layer, I'm going to drag over Cope all sprites and drop them somewhere on the stage. You can see my stage if I zoom out a bit. It's right here. So I have Cope on my stage. Zoom in again so I can see everything. And the next thing I'm going to do is start to code so that Cope can walk around. Because if I run it right now, we're going to see him spinning around himself. And that's completely normal because we haven't told Flash what to do with him yet. So it just plays through that all sprites timeline, which has 4 frames. I'm going to go ahead and lock this Cope layer, but before I do, almost forgot, we have to give him an instance name so we can refer to him in our code. So select Cope, go to Properties, and we're going to name him Cope with all lowercase letters, and then capital M, lowercase c. Again, like I've mentioned, there's different ways to do it. Some people capitalize M and C. This is just how I like to do it. So Cope, capital M, lowercase c, and that's it. Lock the layer. Head over to your Actions layer. It can still stay locked, but we're going to pull up our actions by pressing F9 on my keyboard or going to Window and clicking on Actions. Now here's what we want to do. We want to have it so that Cope walks around randomly on the stage. We want to have it so that he can walk for a random duration, and we also want it so that he walks in a random direction. So maybe he chooses right and he walks for 10 steps, and then next he randomly chooses a new direction like up, and he walks up for 20 steps. So we want that to change. So that's 2 variables so far. One for the direction he's facing and also one for the duration he walks. We also need a timer to see if the duration is passing the timer. So if the timer goes past the duration, we know that he's done walking in that direction. So we're going to need a timer. And the last variable we need is the speed he walks at. Now I'm not going to randomize the speed, so that's just going to be a constant. We're going to go to the same section we wrote all of our variables. These are the variables we created mostly for link. I'm going to go right below that and press enter a few times. So I went after the link variables, and I'm going to create a new set of variables for Cope. And again, this is just to stay organized. I like to keep things separate from each other. So I'm going to type in first var timer, and actually let's call this Cope timer. So that way we know who we're referring to in the code. So var Cope timer :number equals, and we'll set the timer to 0 because it's starting at nothing. We're also going to create another variable called Cope duration, and that's going to be the duration. Now that's going to change with each direction he faces. It's going to change. So we're typing var Cope, and I'm not going to type in duration. I'll just type in Cope dur :number equals, and what we want to do is to have this be a random number. Now in Flash, there's a way to do this. You type in math, which is the class that we want to use, .random. And within math random, you'll see that it's already highlighting what I want to use. So I can continue to type or just press enter and allow it to finish for me. Put an open parentheses for me. I'm going to close the parentheses myself and type in times, and I'll type in 25 and put a semicolon. What this is going to do is it's going to choose a random number between 0 and 25. The other thing we want is to make a variable for the direction Cope is facing. So I'm just going to type in var Cope facing. Now above we well, I should word it a little differently. With Cope facing, we need this to be a number because we want it to be a random number that occurs. So let's say it chooses a number between 1 and 4. If it's 1, then it will have him facing right. If it's 2, it'll have him facing left, 3 up, and 4 down. So that's the kind of idea that we have. In this case, we're going to type in var Cope facing :number, once again, equals math.random, right? Well, not quite. The problem is, let's say I want to choose a random number between 1 and 4 or 0 and 3, doesn't matter, as long as there's 4 choices. And I want to say if, it's one number, he should go one direction. If it's another number, have him go another direction. But the thing is, if I wanted to choose a random number between 1 and 4, there are an infinite number of numbers that I can choose from, because maybe it's 1, maybe it's 1.2, maybe it's 1.2384567, so there's a lot of random numbers there. What I wanted to do is to have it round that number. There are 2 ways to round numbers. You can round them up or round them down. And we're going to round them down. So I'm going to type in first math.floor. And what that's going to do is it's going to round it down. Once I've done that, I'm going to type in open parentheses, close parentheses, and put a semicolon there. Within the parentheses, whatever you type will get rounded down. So if I was to type in 2.4, it would round it to 2. If I wrote 2.8, again, it would round it to 2 because it's going down. If I was to type in math.ceiling, it would round it up. So 2.4 would be 3 in that case, but we're just using floor in this case. So in here, I'm going to type in math.random, open close parentheses, times 4. And that's going to choose a random number between 0 and 3. Because if it gets 3.5, 5 is going to get rounded. 3.5 is going to get rounded down to 3. So there you have it. We have a random number that's going to get chosen between 0 and 3. Let's go to the end of that line and press enter. We just have one more variable, var copay speed :number equals, and we'll set his speed. He'll be a slowpoke, so we'll set his speed to maybe like 3, semicolon there, and we're all set. We have our variables. Now let's have it do stuff. Now as we go, I want to start organizing our code so that way we know where everything is at a glance. So I'm going to start using comment tags as we go forward. Here where we have the event listeners, I'm going to click right there, press enter a couple times there, and put a double slash, and I'm going to type in event listeners for the keyboard events, and enter frame. Here, for the function, I'm going to put a double slash, type in key down event function. I'm going to go down a little bit more. Here, press enter a few times. For the key up handler, I'm going to type in key up event listener. I guess I could have typed that the same way up there. Function. And here, I'm going to make this one a little more obvious. Some dashes there. In fact, we'll put dashes, might look cooler. There we go. Main loop enter frame function there. Some dashes there. That one's going to be nice and obvious because we're going to use that quite a bit. I'm just going to copy that and paste it there. So that one's going to be nice and obvious that that's the game loop function. Now within the game loop function, we have all of the code for Link's movements. And what I want to do is go to the very end. And in fact, you know what? Let's go back up to the main loop here. And within the function, I have my open curly bracket here. So it says function game loop loop event. And I have an open curly bracket there. I'm going to press enter, put a double slash there. And I'm just going to type in Link's movement controls And that way I know that this stuff has to do with Link walking around. The other one is I'm going to go to the very end at line 128 in my case, but it's the curly bracket just before the game loop function ends, because the game loop function starts up here and it ends all the way down here. So just above that, we're going to press enter. That's where Link's movement controls end, and we're still in the loop. So I'm inside the game loop function, but I'm no longer inside the if-else statements for Link's movements. Here I'm going to put a double slash and type in Kopei's brain, because this is where we're going to type in the stuff for Kopei to be able to move around and do stuff. So we're going to start out by creating a if statement for him. And basically what we want to happen is, as long as Kopei, the timer, which is currently set to 0, is less than the duration, we want Kopei to walk around. So I'm going to type in if, open parentheses, Kopei timer from above is less than Kopei dur, which is also from above, close parentheses, press enter, open curly bracket, skip a line, and close the curly bracket. So the end of your code should currently look like this. In here, we're going to type in all the stuff for Kopei's brain. Now, currently, like I said, Kopei's timer is going to be set to 0. Kopei duration is a random number. If you look at the top, it's a random number between 0 and something before 25. Where'd it go? There it is. So it's going to be a random number there. We don't care to round it at all. It doesn't matter for us. So let's say it chooses 10. It's going to go look inside this if statement. The Kopei timer is currently set to 0, and the duration, let's say it chose the random number of 10, is 0 less than 10. Yes, it is. It's going to do something. And then what we're going to do is, at the end of when it does something, we're going to say add 1 to the Kopei timer. So when it goes back and checks again, Kopei timer is now 1. Is 1 less than 10? Yes. So it'll do it again. It'll move him in that same direction that we had from before. It's just going to add 1 to Kopei timer. Kopei timer is now 2. Goes back, is 2 less than 10? Yes. It does it again, adds 1 to Kopei timer. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is 10 less than 10? No, it's not. Then it'll stop moving in that direction. After that, we're going to have an else that says set the timer back to 0 and choose a new random number for Kopei duration and choose a new random number for the Kopei direction, the direction he's facing. And that way it'll go through the whole cycle again for his new direction. So that's our game plan. So to do that, we're going to go inside this if statement here, and we're going to type in a switch statement. The reason I want to do a switch statement is because it's just nice and organized, and it's just an easier way to see which direction he's moving in. So I could have done an if statement in here, but we're actually going to do a switch statement. So I'm going to type in switch, open parentheses, Kopei facing. So it's evaluating, let's put a close parentheses there. It's evaluating Kopei facing. Press enter, open curly bracket, skip a line, close curly bracket. You can see here we have 3 closed curly brackets now at the bottom of our code. 1 closes the switch statement, 1 closes the if statement or stops the if statements, the end of that, and 1 is the end of our function. Now, the way a switch works is this. Instead of writing if, a Kopei facing equals 0, do blah, blah, blah. If Kopei facing equals 2, do blah, blah, blah. If it equals 3, blah, blah, blah. We're going to make it so that we ask Flash to evaluate Kopei facing. And in here, we're going to write down, in the case that it's 0, do this. In the case that it's 1, do this. In the case that it's 2, do this. So it's just an easier way and a more organized way to type the same exact thing. So as we go, it'll make more sense. So let's say we want to say, in the case that it's 0. I literally type in case, space, 0, colon. The case that it's 0, I want it to take Kopei, MC, dot, go to, and stop, open parentheses, quotation walk, back, frame. And what it's going to do, in the case that Kopei facing is 0, it's going to show Kopei walking back. We also want him to move back, literally walk towards the top of the stage. So I would type in Kopei MC dot y minus equals Kopei speed, semicolon. Once I'm done, I'm going to press enter and type in break and put a semicolon there. And what that does is that's the end of that case. There's nothing else for it to do in the case that it's 0. Press enter a couple of times and make sure you keep track of where you are in the code. We're at the bottom right now, but within the last 3 curly brackets, I'm inside the switch statement right now. Case 1, Kopei MC dot go to and stop, open parentheses, quotation mark, walk front frame, quotation mark, close parentheses, semicolon, and Kopei MC dot y, we want him to move down towards the bottom, which means it's adding, plus equals Kopei speed, break, that's it with that one. Case 2, colon, Kopei MC dot go to and stop, open parentheses, quotation mark, walk. We'll have him walk left in this case, so walk left frame. Kopei MC dot y, dot x minus equals Kopei speed. That way he's walking towards the left side of the screen. Put a break there. And last but not least, case 3, Kopei MC dot go to and stop, open parentheses, quotation mark, walk right frame. Quotation mark, close parentheses, semicolon there. Kopei MC dot x plus equals Kopei speed. And a break for that one. So this is great. It's going to see if Kopei timer is less than Kopei duration, and if it is, it's going to check to see what Kopei facing is, and according to whatever it is, 0, 1, 2, or 3, it'll take the appropriate action. Once it's moved it, it's only going to move it one time at Kopei speed. So once it's done that, we want it to exit the if statement and check again. Now it's very important that Kopei timer keeps updating, because if it doesn't, if it stays at 0, then it's going to always be less than Kopei duration, and he'll continue to walk in that direction forever. It won't work. So I'm also going to add right after the switch statement, which ends right here, as you can see. I'm going to press enter at the end of that switch statement. Now I'm still inside the if statement. So I'm in the curly bracket here that started here and ends here. I'm inside that curly bracket, that section of the code. And I want it at the end of that to add 1 to Kopei timer. So I'll just type in Kopei timer plus plus, and that'll add 1 to Kopei timer. Now what's going to happen is Kopei is going to walk towards the direction, and it's going to keep adding and adding until this condition is no longer met. In fact, if I run the code right now, you can see he walks and then he stops. He'll eventually stop because at some point Kopei timer is going to be greater than Kopei duration, and it won't work anymore. And each time he walks for a random direction for a random amount of time. So what we wanted to do is to reset everything once it's gone through this whole process, once it's gone through all that. So at the end of the curly bracket, just for this if, I'm going to press enter. So now I have one curly bracket above and below me, and I'm going to type in else, enter, open curly bracket, and close curly bracket. Inside this else, 3 things are going to happen. It's going to choose a new duration, so Kopei dir equals math.random, open close parentheses, times 25, that's the same code as above. Kopei facing equals math.floor, open parentheses, math.random, open close parentheses, times 4, close parentheses again, because we opened 2 parentheses here, and we have to close both of them. semicolon at the end of that line. And last but not least, we have to reset the timer. So copay timer equals 0. Timer is reset. So double check to make sure everything's in the right place. I have the else that ends here and the function, the game loop function, which ends here. Let's run it and take a look and see what happens. You can see that copay walks around randomly on the stage at random durations and random directions. Now the next thing I want to do is have it so that Link can actually talk to Copay. So the way we can do that is we're going to have to do a little bit of setting up on our stage. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and go back to our stage, take a look at our timeline, and create another new layer. This one's going to be on the top of Copay but below Actions. And again, this is just so I stay organized. I'm going to call this one text box. And at the top of my stage, let's zoom out a little, I'm going to create a black box right up here. And that's where everything is going to go. And once we do that, we're going to have to make a few changes to our code. So let's start with the black box. On my toolbar, I have the rectangle tool. I'm going to choose that. Choose a transparent stroke and a black fill. And we're going to create a box here at the top of my stage. Now this box does not need to be a movie clip because it's not going to be interactive at all. It's just going to be where I put my text box and eventually his health bar and other things. So let's run it and see what we see. We can already see the bars up there. Copay's walking around, which is pretty cool. And Link is also able to walk around, but there are two problems. Problem one is that Link can walk into the black bar before the background starts to move. So we need to make a change so that when Link gets about here, the background starts to move rather than up here. Problem two is I want you to watch what happens to Copay as Link walks around. You can see that Copay travels along with Link. He's not a part of the background as he should be. And that's going to be a problem as well. So let's fix the Copay problem first before we go any further. In order for Copay to be a part of the background, we need to put him inside of the movie clip for the overworld MC. To do that, I'm going to go here to my stage. I'm going to unlock the Copay layer. In fact, we do not even need the Copay layer. I can click on the Copay layer and press the delete button or the trash can. Once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and head over to my library and double click on the background movie clip. That's under background, and here it says overworld. I'll double click on that and take a look at the movie clip for the background. I'll zoom out a little bit so I can see the whole thing. And I'm going to take Copay all sprites and place them here. Before I do, I'll create a new layer, and on the bottom layer I have the background, and on the top layer I have Copay. And I'm going to put Copay here instead. I also need to give him I'll put him right here. I also need to give him an instance name, so make sure that the background layer is locked and you're only on the Copay layer. Select Copay himself. He's right here in the little tiny box right there. I don't know if you can see him. He's right there. So I have him selected. And in here I'm going to give him an instance name of Copay MC. And that's his name again. Same thing we called him earlier. Now I'm going to go back to scene 1 and go back to my actions layer. And inside my actions, we have to make a small change. Instead of referring to him as Copay MC, we're going to tell Flash to look inside the overworld MC and then open Copay MC. So I'll type in overworld MC.Copay MC. Same thing here. Overworld MC.Copay MC. Here. Here. And for the last two cases as well. I'm going to actually copy this and paste it for the rest. There, there, and there. So anywhere there's a Cope MC, it has to start with overworld MC, and that's just telling Flash, go inside of the overworld movie clip and find Cope there. And so now if I run it, Cope is now part of the background, and as Link moves, Cope stays on the background, and he does his thing inside the background. The next thing we need to fix is Link walking too far off the stage, and that's a really easy fix. Inside the actions layer, we're going to find the section when Link walks up. So we're going to go to the section where we said if up pressed is true, which is right here on line 117 in my case. Else if up pressed, if Link MC is greater than 200, have Link move. Else if overworld MC.y is less than 0, move overworld. So this just makes sure basically that as long as overworld's not too far down, I guess, it's going to move overworld. What we want to do is change this 200 to something like 400. And now if I run it again, Link is here, and when he gets too far up, the background starts to move. So he never gets too far above the, or into the block that we created there. The next thing we need to do is create a text field up at the top. And there's a couple of different ways we can do this. We'll cover both of them. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and lock my text box layer and create another new layer. And I don't have to do this, but I'm just choosing to. I'm going to create another new layer, call it text field. There we go. And on this layer, I'm going to go to my tools and choose the text tool. Now, the text tool, I want you to pay close attention here because some of you might have different versions of Flash. Mine is on TLF text, and if I click up there, I also have classic text, which a lot of you will probably have. Within classic text, there are 3 types of text fields I can create. There's a static text field, which basically is a text field that doesn't change or do anything special. It's non-interactive. There's a dynamic text field where I can have the code, modify it, change it. If Link talks to someone, it gets updated. Then you have an input text field where you can have text typed in by the user, and the program does things with it. In this case, we want to use the dynamic text field because we want it so that when Cope and Link meet, it updates the text field at the top. Alternatively, you can also use this TLF. That's fine too. Within the family, I'm choosing Arial. The style is bold. I'm going to go ahead and click this embed button and ask it to embed the font, because if a computer doesn't have that font, it's going to cause problems. This way, it'll embed the font into the Swift itself. I'm choosing the size here. 25 is fine. The color black will not work because I'm going to be typing it here on a black box. So I'm going to choose the color white instead. And I'm going to align it to the left under paragraph. After I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and click and create a text field right in this box. Let's do that by clicking and dragging my mouse. Inside this text field, I don't really need to write anything. I'm just going to write some random text there just so I can see what it looks like. Maybe increase the size a little bit. Maybe 25 is a bit too small. I'll type in maybe 30. That looks pretty good. And let's take a look and see what we have. It looks pretty good. One thing I didn't mention here is I set my anti-alias to use device fonts. That way it looks pretty crisp and clear. But yeah, that's fine for what we're doing. Okay, so we have our text field. We're going to give our text field an instance name up here. So it's selected. I'm going to give it an instance name of just, let's see, what would be a good name for it? We can call it just my text is fine. Let's call it my text. So there's my text field up at the top. Right now it has some random words which will get deleted in a moment. We're going to go ahead and head up to our actions layer, right click, click on actions, or press F9 on your keyboard. And what we want to have happen is that when Link touches Cope, that it says, hello, my name is, Kope. What's your name? Blah, blah, blah. So here's how we're going to do that. Right here where we wrote the code for Kope's brain, I'm going to press enter so that before the Kope timer stuff starts, I want to type in the information for what the computer should do when Kope and Link meet. So what we're going to tell it to do is that if, open parentheses, linkmc dot hit test object, open parentheses, overworld mc dot Kope mc, double close parentheses, open curly bracket, close curly bracket. Let's press enter a couple times, separate those a little bit. If Link touches Kope MC, which can be found inside Overworld MC, do blah blah blah. So this is the typical format to do a hit test. Inside the curly brackets, I'm going to type in my text dot text with lowercase letters equals hello Link. My name is Kope. You must traverse this land in search of the evil one. Put a close quotation mark there and put a semicolon. Now what's going to happen is we're going to have it so that when Link touches Kope, it's going to update this text field. So let's run it and take a look. So right now it says that random text we had from before, but if I go over and we'll touch Kope, it says, hello, my name is Kope, right? But as you notice, when I'm not touching it, it still shows up. How can I solve that problem? Well, what I can do is make an else. After this if, I'll press enter, type in else, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, my text dot text equals, something like find your friend. And now if I run it again, it'll say find your friend at the top, and it replaced that random text I put up there as well. So you can see he's walking around. If he touches Kope, it says hello. If he walks away, it says find your friend. It's kind of simple. The other problem is Kope keeps walking around, and eventually he'll walk and then, he might go away from me, and that's no good. He should be polite and stand still when I'm talking to him, right? So what can we do to resolve that problem? Well, quite simply, we need to have it so that all of the stuff that happens with Kope moving, the timer, the else, all of that happens inside of this else. If Link is touching Kope, it's just going to update the text field. But otherwise, if he's not touching Kope, it should have him walk around and also make the text field say, find your friend. So here's what you need to copy over. I'm going to take the line that says, if Kope timer is less than Kope duration, I'm going to highlight that line and go all the way down, highlight the switch, highlight the closed curly bracket for the switch, highlight Kope timer plus plus, the closed curly bracket for the if statement, the else, the open curly bracket for the else, all the Kope reset stuff, and the closed curly bracket for the else. Notice that I did not highlight the last curly bracket, which is for the function. Here I can right click and click cut, or I can press Ctrl X on my keyboard to do the shortcut. So Ctrl X or cut, and I'm going to delete all that stuff, those extra lines there. And so this is the current code. Within this else, so if he's touching him, say this. If he's not, do this. And in addition to that, I'm going to press enter, do all of this. I'm going to right click and click paste. And it added all of that stuff that Kope was doing in the else. Now it's kind of disorganized. I need to indent these things because they're inside of the else statement now. So I need to indent one more. But I can easily click this auto format button and it will take care of it for me. So if I run it now, here we have Kope. It says find your friend. I walk over to him and let's see what happens. He stands still now that I'm talking to him. When I walk away, he walks. When I touch him, he stops. Cool stuff, huh? So we're going to leave it at that for this part of the lesson. Next, we'll start looking at a health bar for Link, and some more advanced features to make your game even more interactive. See you on the next one.